Welcome to the Healing Our Relationships podcast. I'm Marisa, healer, insight timer meditation teacher, and transformation guide, helping women transform their relationship to self. Join me each week on a journey of self-discovery as I hope to inspire you to step into awareness, compassionate curiosity, and authenticity. If you want to dive deeper and be held inside of this work and inside of community, join me on the last Thursday of the month live on Zoom, a 90-minute free gathering for women healing codependent patterns and healing their relationship to self. You can learn more about our group or working with me one-on-one at healwithalchemy.com. Until then, let's begin. Hello, everyone. I've missed our time together as I was gone the last few weeks, and I am so glad that so many of you enjoyed the meditation that I posted, the prayer for relationship obsession, and the 7-day course. If you missed any of those offerings, you can check those out in the bonus episode. But I'm so glad to be back. I had an amazing time, and let's dive right in. So I've spent quite a bit of time speaking to making room for the authentic self and allowing the authentic self to unfold, helping you understand how and why maybe your authentic self feels hidden or suppressed or repressed from the world. So today I want to get into the micro, something that might sound simple in your day-to-day life, having the courage to be yourself. Having the courage to say what's on your mind, in your heart, having the courage to act, dress, be, express yourself in your authenticity. And while it sounds simple in practice, or it can sound really easy when people read the 4 agreements and just say, don't take anything personally, or Mel's new, let them, like just be yourself, let them have their experience. Yes, absolutely. And our fear is so strong. It lives in layers within us, in our nervous system. And so even though in our head and our mind, we might be thinking, yes, I want to just let people be who they are and be responsible for themselves. And I want to be my authentic self. And I am not afraid of other people. When the rubber hits the road or the moment comes forward and we're faced with this choice of being ourselves, that fear can just hijack and take over. So one, I just want to say that that is normal. And it's important that we acknowledge that we can't just use our head, that we have to begin to create a deeper relationship with ourselves and inside of our heart center. And I also think in spiritual ways as well, if that is a path that you invite into your life. But when we embark on this journey, it is much deeper because it really is about how we see, experience ourselves. And what I found for myself was that it was an unfolding process of moment by moment, relationship by relationship, navigating, coming back into a place of authenticity, being in courage, having boundaries, standing up for myself, and having moments where I was afraid to do so, where I did shapeshift, where I did change to be more palatable, or out of fear because maybe I didn't really know what was needed. And once I realized and was in a place of compassion for myself, it was in those moments too that one might consider a failure, or you messed up, or see that as some sort of lapse in the healing and recovery process. What I realized is that those were amazing experiences for me to learn from, to feel what it felt like on the other end of holding that with compassionate awareness, of being like, wow, Marisa, you shifted yourself. Okay. How does that feel in your body? Like, what would you like to do different? And it would inspire and encourage me the next time around, or be like this place of remembering in like the areas of my life that I was still afraid to be in my power, still afraid to be seen, or in certain relationships. So everything is data when you are in a place of compassionate awareness. You are, in my opinion, I will always encourage the women that I work with, the people that I work with, that this is not about getting to some level of perfection in your life where you are in your authenticity 1,000% of the time. If you can get there, amazing. But I've been doing this work for a long time, and I still have moments where fear takes over, where fear makes me question, where someone else's experience that was so real to them makes me question myself. And that is part of the human experience. So yes, authenticity sounds beautiful. And if we could just not take things personally, if we could just be in our power, if we could just let them, that would be wonderful. And I'm going to encourage you to read the books, do the practices, engage in all of the healing modalities that support you in allowing other people to be themselves and allowing you to fully love yourself and be yourself. And at the same time, I want to hold you in the middle, in the difficulty of what that looks like, and give you some tools to use in the meanwhile. So I want to begin this conversation with talking about the concept of projection. And this concept was first introduced by Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist. And he taught that what we repress, deny, or refuse to look at, or refuse to even see in ourselves, these things do not just disappear. They get projected onto others. He said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. He believed that this was the psyche's way of keeping us safe from the discomfort of seeing our own shadow. And we haven't gotten too much into the shadow. If you do the 7 Days of Sacred Rhythm course that I offer you a free promo code for, I actually have a day where I introduce you to working with your shadow. So the shadow are these unacknowledged parts of ourselves, of who we are. And we could talk so much more about that. But for today, projection in psychology is really considered and understood as a defense mechanism. And when we talk about the Toltec path, and if you go back to some of the first episodes, or if you read the Four Agreements, Don Miguel speaks to the idea of projection as we all have an experience, the way that we see the world, our own personal dream, he calls it. And we see everyone through the filter of our own dream. And we project our experiences onto other people. We also make assumptions about how other people are going to think and feel about us. And here's the thing, is that if you are in a moment where you are afraid to dress a certain way, take care of yourself in a certain way that someone might judge, or just whatever it might be, if you're afraid to be yourself in that moment, there is a chance that you yourself might judge someone for the same thing. Or you yourself are afraid to be in your authenticity, so when you see someone in theirs, it activates something in you. And in that moment, it's easy to judge that person or say, wow, they really want a lot of attention. Or, gosh, I can't believe she dressed like that. So it's this way that parts of your mind protect you in some way. Like if you shame yourself and guilt yourself, then make sure you're shaming and guilting others in the same way, because they don't deserve to be free if you don't deserve to be free. Now, this is all typically going on in the subconscious and in many different ways. That is just one example. But when we begin to step into a place of awareness, and especially if you really start paying attention to what it is you believe about yourself and other people, what it is you hold dear in terms of how you judge yourself, or how you judge the world, right? Because we all have what Don Miguel calls the book of law, where this is our book, this is what we believe, this is what we consider to be true, and then we typically go and judge the world. And when our book is fear-based, or when we've grown up with a lot of fear-based domestication or rhetoric, we can often project that fear onto others in terms of absolution. So we see this in the Dream of the Planet today, where we are very divided as a culture because we have, two sides that are at least very loud, that are saying this is the truth, this is the way, this is morally good or right. And each group, each people, and I'm being very, very general here, but just if in a macro sense, so we can deepen into this understanding, those people live in a reality where it is their truth and they are right. And I believe that it is our responsibility as humans to take a look at our truths and ask ourselves, where did these beliefs come from? And are they coming from fear? Are they coming from love? And how much of our own belief system and experience are we projecting onto others? Are we asking others to see the world in the way that we see ours? And that is nearly impossible. That's why I don't really like grouping people into political parties or two different sides or black and white, because it's not. Because inside of those dynamics are people who are vastly complicated and have an amazing and insane amount of experience, trauma, pain, love, financial differences, cultural differences. It would be nearly impossible to put groups of people together and ask them to see, believe, and feel the same way about something. And yet our society asks that. And that can feel challenging and suppressing of the authentic self, because most likely everyone is a lot more complicated and multifaceted. So I just took us kind of far. Let me bring you back. The point of all of this is when we come to a place where we're willing to be compassionate and curious around how we see the world, it is easier for us to understand that when other people are coming at us, judging us, criticizing us, telling us we're not good enough, leaving nasty comments on our whatever we're doing, when people show up like that, instead of immediately getting defensive, going into fight or flight, questioning who you are, or immediately deleting, changing, or doing something different, there is a pause that we have when we are able to, and this is what Don Miguel says about not taking things personally, but when we're able to feel in our body that whatever is happening for that person is not just about us. It is not just about that moment of judgment or criticism. What is happening for that person is they are projecting. They are projecting not only their shadow, but their entire life up until this moment, that whatever I said or did to activate this person is a fraction of that is about me. I was the trigger, maybe, that activated some core deep beliefs. I was the trigger that had that person speaking to me in an abusive way, judging me, criticizing me, because that's what their father did to them. That's what their parent did to them. And that is what they learned. And you better believe that that kid who was verbally abused or hurt or highly judged and criticized felt pain. And in order to overcome that pain, they a lot of times will manifest the same behavior. They will start acting in the same way because they were taught how to act that way. So it's not uncommon when you find an adult or a child who was bullied because there was someone in their life that bullied them. And you better believe that the person that is super judgmental and critical is very insecure and very judgmental and critical of themselves. And this is where in the codependency patterns, where we talk about the patterns that are more one up, the patterns that are more denial, control, aggressive, their insecurity and fear, the same insecurity and fear that manifest for somebody who instead went one down, got real quiet, real insecure, changed themselves for everyone. That was the kind of codependent I was, right? Super insecure. They experience often the very same thing, but their inclination is to go one up, to continue to engage in that behavior to keep them safe and walled off. So when you realize that so much of people's response to you really isn't about you, it provides a level of freedom in you, allowing yourself the courage to be who you are. And the practice inside of this is allowing yourself to be judged, allowing yourself to not fit in, allowing yourself to be uncomfortable. It's really a practice of telling your nervous system, I'm going to teach you that you are not going to die, that the danger that you feel in being your authentic self is not life-threatening. And you're teaching yourself that you are fully capable of holding people's discomfort, aggression, and projections. Now, this is the second part of this, though, is are you capable of holding that? Before I got sober and before I got into recovery, I was not capable of holding other people's projections. So I would die on a hill, battle, verbally stand up for myself, and fight in order for somebody to know that I was not wrong. Or if somebody came at me with their projections, I got defensive. I did not know how to, what we call in the healing work world, hold space. I did not have the tools, the wherewithal, or the understanding for somebody to come at me and for me to take a breath, calm my nervous system, and give them the space, hear their experience, and not make it about me. Just be a conscious listener. And then, instead of react, respond. I didn't have the tools to do that. And this is a two-parter. When we're having the courage to be ourselves and we're understanding that other people are projecting onto us, we also need to take responsibility for where we project onto others. And where we go into a place of fighting, aggression, blame, and we start engaging in these conversations that essentially destroy relationships, right? Because we're not being co-creators. I have an experience that's real. You're having a very real experience of me. If we want to stay in co-creation in relationship, and if we really honestly just want to work on being free from that type of suffering in our lives, then we have to consciously choose to learn how to allow other people to have their experience of us, hold it, respond with our truth, and stay grounded. And so as somebody who really struggled with anger and raising her voice and yelling and getting frustrated and drama, a lot of energy of drama, it took me a few years to learn how to stay calm, stay grounded, and listen. And for me, I prefer to live my life like that. I prefer if somebody comes to me upset with me, and whether they come to me in a positive way that feels like they're trying to repair, or whether they come at me in a way that is very judgmental or critical, I'm capable of holding it in that moment and not escalating. Now, I'm going to put a note here because I want you to remember this. I can do it with strangers. I can do it with clients. I can do it with peers. I am typically pretty good. When it comes to the more intimate, high-risk relationships, that is where the work is greater required, especially if I don't feel safe and secure. So I always tell people, when you start doing these practices, cast a wide net. It's going to be harder to do it with your partner or your parent or your boss. It's going to be a lot easier to do it with somebody that is a little bit more detached. And the encouragement here for you is to really begin to ask yourself, with compassionate awareness, do I get upset easily at other people? Do I get frustrated with their belief systems or their experiences? Do I take it personally when they act a certain way, are a certain way, dress a certain way, show up a certain way? Do I make assumptions about their life and what they've been through? Do I make an assumption that just because they're sharing their experience, they're speaking for the world? So much of the conflict we experience in our lives is because of projection and assumption. And the root of that is fear. The root of that is fear. And when we start doing our healing work, when we start understanding our relationship to fear, and we begin to realize this mechanism that was literally human designed in us to keep us alive, when we realize that so many of the fears we have are not about survival, they're really all get boiled down to this fear of getting kicked out of the tribe, the fear of not being good enough, because if you keep going down that road, it will come down to death. I think I've mentioned the book Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender by Dr. David Hawkins, and he explains fear in such a beautiful way. Please read that if fear is something that you struggle with in your life. Now let's loop in this authenticity inside of this, right? Because we're talking about the practice of being in our truth, living in compassionate curiosity, and now allowing others to be in theirs, right? And so authenticity isn't about being right. It's not about being right. It's about being real in whatever that is for you. And when you first start speaking your truth or acting how you want to act and being who you want to be, it can feel really messy and awkward at first, because you might have this voice in you saying, is this the right thing to do? Is this right? And why do we care if it's right? Because of that deep fear underneath. If I show who I really am, will they stay? Will they love me? Will they accept me? Learning to show up authentically, communicating authentically, means that we learn to hold both our truth and someone else's response without going into a place of complete collapse or defense. Okay, I want to say that again. Learning to communicate and live in your authenticity is going to mean that you will need to learn to hold your truth alongside someone else's response without immediately going into a place of fight or flight. And so how this looks in practice, right, is ownership of our experience. So let's say I'm facilitating a workshop for the day, and I'm holding space for like 15 people, and I'm doing my best to make sure everyone feels seen and heard, and I'm present for everybody. But I'm also holding this like bigger container at the same time. And maybe it's somebody's first time coming and doing something with me. And they come up to me and say, you know what, I just really felt like you were giving everybody else attention. I felt like you were ignoring me, and I'm just really upset. And they start sharing all these pieces with me, right? When I can listen to them without defense, when I can accept that their experience is real, it softens me. It softens me. When I know immediately in my body, which I do now because I've been practicing this a long time, right? Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't make me feel scared that I messed up, because I'm human, and I will tell you one of the things I absolutely hate to do is mess up. And I've been unlearning that for a long time. I don't like hurting people. So it will activate me when somebody feels hurt by me. That's normal. But we're talking about how I respond. Am I responding from that hurt and need to defend myself, or am I responding from a place of compassion and understanding? So when they project onto me by saying, "You're making me feel ignored," I want to respond to them by acknowledging their feeling, because they actually feel ignored, and that is what hurts. Now, instead, if they weren't projecting, let's say they wanted to talk to me in a way that was more relational and wasn't a projection, they might say, "Hey, you know what, Marisa? I feel like this day has been very helpful and beneficial to me." And maybe they'll tune into some things that actually worked well. And they might say, "I'm really feeling unseen. And I don't know if it's because of the amount of attention I've gotten or have not gotten. I don't know if it's because maybe you even trust me that I can take care of myself, because I know sometimes I come in really strong, but I'm feeling in this moment unseen by you. And I just wanted to share that that was my experience." Because here's the thing. Most of the time when somebody is genuinely hurt, but they want to stay in relationship, they don't want to go, "Marisa, you weren't paying any attention to me. You don't know what you're doing. I hate this. I'm never doing this again." And they leave and leave a bad review on your Yelp. Those people typically don't really want what you have to offer anyway. Maybe they weren't even there to receive what it is you're offering. But when somebody is genuinely there to receive from you or to be in relationship with you and you hurt them, more often than not, when we're hurt by people, we don't want to run. We want to stay in relationship. We acknowledge and honor that these people do care about us and they are showing up for us in a certain way. And at the same time, we're still feeling hurt. That is a relational way of sharing. That is about taking ownership of our experience. And it's also about not making assumptions. Because I will tell you, in the instance of somebody who might say, "You weren't giving me enough attention," there is a good chance that I might have made an assumption because of someone's experience or how they were showing up that day or their bold personality, that they've really got this and they can really hold themselves. So maybe I don't need to check on them that much. And when I get met with that, it gives me an opportunity to look at that and go, "Wow, this is teaching me how to be a better facilitator. Thank you." Because maybe next time before circle, I might actually say, "Hey, if you need additional help and I'm not coming to you, please feel comfortable raising your hand. I'm watching all 15 of you right now, and I need a little help from you." Or if you're feeling really tender today and there's more that you need from me, please let me know. When people are upset with us or annoyed with us or judge us, it's actually an opportunity for us to grow. It is. Maybe their truth is totally off base, right? Maybe they're just so far off base, and this happens a lot. I've experienced this. And if they're so far off base, then my non-codependent response is I'm going to set a boundary. One, I'm not going to let them ruin my day and energetically come into my field and make me question who I am. And then two, I'm going to say, "No, thank you. I'm not available for that." If you want to have a conscious conversation that's rooted in coming to some sort of repair, that's great. But if you just want to berate me and judge me and I can't speak to you in that way. I want to hear what you're saying, but this is my boundary, right? But there's always something to learn. There really is always something to learn. And this is how we learn how to hold space without being defensive. It's when we resist that impulse to defend ourselves, we actually strengthen our self-trust, right? Because if I immediately go to a place of defending myself, it's almost like I'm trying to convince myself and you that I wasn't trying to be hurtful. But if I go into a place of listening and not trying to rush to repair something that disrupts, but some sort of truth just shook things up. And when I resist the impulse to react and allow myself to respond, I'm telling my nervous system that I didn't mess up, that let me say this in another way. If I know that my intention was not to harm or hurt, that I genuinely wasn't showing up in a way where I really failed and really dropped the ball, just because someone else feels like I did doesn't necessarily mean that I did. And going into that type of relationship with ourselves helps us strengthen the trust of who we are. Now, that is who I am. Not all the time doesn't mean I'm not an angry person, or I haven't flipped somebody off when I'm driving in my car, gotten mad at AT&T when I can't get through on the 10th time. Trust me, I am not perfect in not projecting or getting upset or raising my voice or harming. Part of your journey is figuring out where you are with that and being in compassionate observation. Do you come from a place of love and kindness, or do you come from a place of anger and judgment and criticism? And can you compassionately hold yourself to a place of radical self-honesty and ask if there's some healing work you need to do there? There is huge freedom in not needing to be right or not needing someone else to know that you're right. That really helped me in early recovery, because in early addictions recovery, we had to make amends for those that we harmed. And that was very uncomfortable. And I didn't want to have to make amends again selfishly. So when people were upset with me, I remember having this mantra where I would hold myself, let them be upset. Marisa, do not react in a way that is going to require you to make an amends 5 months later. Please just hold your tongue. And you might say, oh, well, isn't that suppression of your authenticity? I would say no, because the authentic self can speak calmly and collectively. When I was activated, I'd get angry. When people were resentful at me, I'd want to match them and yell and make a case. So I had this mantra that helped me, which was, I don't need them to know that I'm right. I can be right in my world. I can know where I was coming from. I can be right, and I don't need them to know. So I will listen. I will say, I understand. I'll ask for clarity. And it really helped me. Those early recovery tools really helped me be in a place of understanding in the beginning. But I will tell you what happened, because I know some of you are thinking this, is that after a while, that behavior kind of morphed into a codependent pattern, because I found myself not speaking my truth out of fear of it escalating and me not really being able to hand a second escalation. And in wanting to be compassionate and loving, I suppressed and repressed a lot of my feelings. So it wasn't until much later, when I started doing a lot more of the healing work practices that I do, and when I really started becoming a teacher and a facilitator and was on the receiving end of a lot of projections, was I really able to hone in on this practice of receiving and speaking truth in a way that is respectful and loving, and taking ownership of my own projections and experience as well. So yeah, use those mantras. I don't need someone else to know I'm right, but also practice being boundaried and sharing your truth from a place of confidence and love, and not with anger, silence, or withdrawal. Right? Because there is so much freedom when we don't need everybody to understand us all the time, and people are not going to understand you. And a beautiful thing is that you don't need someone to agree with your truth for it to be valid. Of course it feels good, right? It totally feels good when someone says, wow, that's so amazing. That was really helpful. I really believe that. Thank you. Yes, your experience feels very real. But you're also going to get people that are completely going to disagree. And the authenticity that we're working towards is really asking for you to have the courage to be misunderstood, have the courage to be projected on, have the courage, because it is inside of that courage, like on the other side, inside, where you're going to find the freedom inside of fully being yourself. And so your tool and your practice aside from all the awareness that I invited you into today, is to really pay attention to the moments where you are afraid to be who you are, where you are really worried about what somebody is going to think of you. And inside of that awareness, really pay attention to your nervous system and what your body wants, even if other people are disappointed. Your body and your heart, like your longing and your truth. And share your vulnerable truth instead of saying something that you think someone wants to hear. Something that can really throw a lot of people off about me is that I am very open to sharing exactly what's happening instead of wrapping it in something that feels more palatable. I will say, I'm feeling very insecure. The story that I'm telling myself when this situation happened is that you were telling me that you felt like I wasn't good enough. And I really felt this, like I will go deep into my truth, and it really throws people off because they're not used to that. Because most of us, we give a watered down version, or we're not actually sharing exactly what's happening because it requires too much vulnerability. But because the work that I have been required to do in my own world requires so much vulnerability, in order for me to hold other people in their vulnerability, I have to get really comfortable with the raw truth. And so practicing that, if you want to practice that and you want to get to that place where you can actually share very much what is happening for you without wrapping it in some story, then you have to get vulnerable. And remembering that if you do and someone else reacts, you don't have to defend yourself or fix their reaction. You can just give them an opportunity to show up for you. And if they can't, you can say, you can double down with your truth. I was really trying to be vulnerable because I wanted you to understand the depth of my pain and where I was coming from. And I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm just wondering if you're available to see how this might have affected me. And they still keep going and they still project, or they're still angry, then yeah, you can walk away and say, thank you, I tried, I'm not available for this conversation. But sometimes people are going to be surprised by your vulnerability and authenticity, and they will stop and pause and see, wow, can I just let them know that I heard them, that I'm acknowledging their pain, even though I don't feel responsible? I mean, this is like master's level relational work, truly. I will say that at least for people like me who were not born with those tools, who lived in a lot of fear and projected and made assumptions. So in your daily life, be yourself, make room for yourself, and practice coming to a place of self-trust by doing the thing that you're uncomfortable to do. Notice when you feel the urge to perform or shapeshift. When you do shapeshift or perform, you can also backtrack and say, actually, you know what? That's not what I meant. I said that, but here's the thing. Make decisions from being in alignment instead of approval. And please remember that authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's just about being present, because you're always ever unfolding. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for being here. I am so glad to be back with you, and I will see you again next week. Thank you so much for being here. Please head to healwithalchemy.com to learn more about me and my offerings. Through one-on-one work, group cohorts, and worldwide retreats, I have so much to offer you. You can download my free meditation app, HealSpace, and access our monthly live Healing Our Relationships meeting on Zoom on the last Thursday of the month. You can also find me on Insight Timer for free meditations, live events, and so much more. Thank you for your support, and please take some time to rate and review, and email me anytime to introduce yourself. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the other side.